Okay.
Hey, all. I just want to welcome everyone here. I have a very special friend, Renegade. Is that how you like to be introduced?
Yeah, Rene.
Rennie, so glad to have you. Beautiful soul. I was just asking Rennie a little bit about herself and if you could just share a little bit, where you come from and wherever you want to go with that.
Okay. Well, let's take me back all the way before I came into Earth.
And
I was
incarnated.
born into a Roman Catholic European family, um, so heavily indoctrinated into religion right from the get-go. Um, Not so much Bible like in Europe in the Catholic Church, nobody read the Bible. You just listened to what the priest said. And then at about when I was age 12, my oldest brother had immigrated to Canada and he befriended some Baptist friends. And that's how the Bible was introduced to our family. And so I started reading the Bible at 14, around that time, but I didn't really get serious until I was 15. And I got baptized and the whole thing was that, and just um, dived into the Bible, into Christianity, into Jesus. Um, and over the next, let's see here, I always say 35 plus years I spent in that from the age of 15 to when I was 50. Yeah, that's 35 years. So, in various different denominations, always looking for more truth from one denomination to the next to the next. I don't even know what I was looking for, but it just wasn't fulfilling. And I'll fast forward to 2015, one summer. I just sat on my bed and I said, gosh, God, there's got to be more. And I felt really desperate, like I was missing it. I was missing the purpose for my life and why I'm here in this, uh, why I'm here, even what I'm here to do. So I said, God, please, don't let me miss the purpose for my life before I
Wow,
pass away here, because I don't want to die having completely missed it. And that
that's
was my
beautiful.
opening prayer. And things started rolling then. My mom had she had cancer and she passed away 6 months later in 2016. And a lot of that, um, the things that she shared me with me on her deathbed, her Jesus visions and angel visitations and things. When I look back on it, it didn't add up. Um, I'll give you a brief little snapshot of the main one. Was when Jesus was coming. This was a couple days before she transitioned. Jesus was coming to her, and he had little hiking gear on and a little those um, Bavarian mountain people like that little hat. It's my mom is German, right? So that is in her psyche. So
Yes.
he came hiking with his little rucksack and towards her, and then when he was about 10 feet away from her, he would sit down by the side of the road and just wait. And my mom asked him, Jesus, why are you not coming to me? And his reply was, because of sin. And so my mom, as any person on their deathbed will do, if they get that answer, is going to do their deathbed confessions. And she rummaged through her entire life from childhood, all the things that she did wrong, and just confessed it to me. And after she
Wow.
was done, then Jesus got up and came to her and hugged her and embraced her and kissed her on the forehead. And then he danced away happily and left. And then a couple days later, my mom followed. But I thought it bothered me in that moment. Of course, I'm not going to argue with a person dying. Listen,
Right.
you got your theology wrong here. But it started breaking down this whole concept with visions and dreams. All of a sudden, I thought, Jesus, what's wrong with this picture? Are you're in your glorified state? Are you too good to come and comfort my dying mother? You know, that she's a dirty sinner. When you were on earth, you were surrounded by sinners. I couldn't
Mm,
make sense of this. And so I tucked it away in the back of my mind, but it was it was what eroded my faith in prophetic things and dreams and visions because I understood. Um, my mom's favorite Bible verse was James 5:14 to 16. And that's the one that says, if any of you is sick, let them call for the elders for prayer and confess your sins that you might be healed.
okay.
You see the theme of this on her deathbed.
Hmm.
So yeah, so that started. Oh, I just all of a sudden didn't know anymore. What is all of this? Is this all just an imagination in our minds? You know, a
Mm.
mental fabrication? These visions. So I went from there, and then I started to I found some YouTube videos from someone, Bobby Collier, and he was doing a side by side comparison between the New Testament God and the Old Testament God, and how horrible the Old Testament God was, and Yahweh, you know, and how he's basically the devil compared to Jesus. And I went down that path for a while, but in 2019, I met this person online, which I later found out was what is known as a twin flame. And we had 8 week window of what they call the bubble of faith, which is a completely judgment free zone. And love is just unconditional love. And during that period, I had my Kundalini awakening and crown chakra opening, and all of a
Okay.
sudden I was connected to my oversoul or to
Okay.
the divine, right? And downloads came in, information came in that just uh, it just snowballed.
Okay. I call it the veil opening. For me,
The
that's what
what?
it was. For me, I called it the veil opening.
The veil opening. Yeah, same
Okay.
thing.
So we all have different. One of the things that I love about us coming out of the box of Christianity is that we learn to speak different spiritual languages and we learn to listen to other spiritual languages, and it's beautiful
Yeah, yeah.
instead of just Christianese.
Mm-hmm. So, anyways, when that happened, I was connected, and I was starting like I I immediately had the knowing that I was connected to source and that my soul was source. It was no longer a different being from myself, and it was all one as one. I try to describe it with like picture a bubble going out of your head, like a really giant consciousness bubble, you know, and that's trying to fit into your human, but it can't. It's just
Yeah.
that balloon that stays outside, but that keeps feeding you the information, the higher information. And so I had that. But at the same time, uh, what happens with the twin flame, with the polarities, I got dropped like a hot potato. And then I had to deal with the betrayal and the rejection and the abandonment of going from this loving relationship to all of a sudden being rejected cold. And that brought out all the buried stuff inside of me. And
What
yeah,
stuff?
that started the dark night of the soul, which for me lasted a good 2 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Just work through all those emotions, and yeah,
Shadow, like shadow work.
shadow work. Um, I consider myself done now. I'm coming into the fifth year now, and I visit it still more in my musings because I kind of want to express the process of what it can look like and what the thought processes are.
Hmm.
as you go through your shadow work, right? So that's why I put out the musings. But I consider myself on the other side of the dark night of the soul. Now I'm actually walking a lighter path now. But
Okay.
yeah. So that's
Just a
where
few
I am now.
questions before you go
Hmm?
forward. A few questions before you go forward. You're
Yeah.
still having trouble hearing me, right? You
Yeah,
s-
it's still very
okay, hold
faint
on
on
one
my end.
second. See something. Is that any better? Any different? No? Okay.
It must be my laptop.
Okay. Maybe
I
you could
will,
put your, can you put your laptop volume or it's all the way up?
I have it all the
All the
way
way up.
up. Let me
Okay.
just double check here. Um, where is my button?
At the top bar.
Doo, 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 doo. Hang on, hang on. Let's see where the volume control is. Hmm.
Okay, we got the sound figured out. We're going to resume now. Just a few questions from the things that you said. First of all, so you have an accent. Is that German?
Yeah.
Okay. And the other thing is you grew up in Canada
I came to Canada when I was 15. Yeah.
and you've been there ever since?
Yeah.
Just to kind of get a geographic background of your Christianity.
I'm more Canadian now than I German.
Okay. And did you get involved in the apostolic movement? Were you at the Toronto Blessing and all of that
No,
stuff
I
or no?
always stayed away from that. That freaked me out.
Okay. So the were you more Baptist based?
Yeah, more
Okay.
fundamental Baptist, Pentecostal, holiness type, dressing up with the long hair and the hair covering and the long dresses and all
Oh
that.
wow.
Oh
Did you believe in speaking in tongues?
Um, I tried to, but I never did. And that was very psychologically damaging to me too, because it made me feel like a stepchild, like God didn't love
Ah,
me.
gotcha. I've heard people say that or that they can't hear the voice of God and that God speaks to other people. So I've met you recently and grabbed some of your musings from Facebook and from YouTube, and I can tell that you have a clear channel when you speak. It's so direct, so on point. It's so God source, whatever we want to call it.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just like an arrow goes right into my soul. I think most people have a life message in a sense, and I don't want to say what yours is, but what the gist of it I get, and if you can maybe tag off of that is well, one of the musings I was listening to today was how do you know the difference between religion and spirituality? And you say it's very, very easy.
What did I
Um,
say?
you said religion is when we worship something outside of ourself, which could be Jesus or, any other figure. But spirituality is when we
Is
know,
experiencing our own soul.
right?
Experiencing our own soul, really. Yeah. See, I don't remember some of the things I said on musings
Because
because they are
they're just
channeled, right?
downloads. They're downloads. And you were saying to something about the Immaculate Heart. It was so beautiful in when you're truly in spirituality, you are in touch with your Immaculate Heart.
Yeah.
That was such a different phrase. I have,
Definitely channeled.
yeah, I
Yeah.
know. And so this theme of which you got a lot of spunk, I'm still kind of coming out, and I can identify with gay people now because I'm still have a lot of inhibition. I still have a lot of fear, and I'm being vulnerable and honest and authentic about that. I've had a lot of rejection. I've had a lot of people shun me and uh, really think that they need to pray for a covering for me. They are heartbroken over what's happened to me. They can't believe that, all of the stuff, Um, and yet it's the most liberating thing that we've experienced, right? In letting go of this word worship, this outside religion, and
Yeah.
realizing. So I was just wondering if you could talk about that a little bit, why that's so liberating, or what that message, because it's in everything you speak, you say it, and you have no inhibition to say it, you
Yeah,
know?
because it's coming from my higher soul. Like I'm not speaking it as me, the person Rene, right? It's just something coming through me that needs to be out there. But let me just ask you back here so I understand right. You were coming out as gay or
Not as gay, but as coming out of religion and
oh,
saying,
okay, I
you
see.
know, source is me.
I
I
had
am
so many
divine, you
yes.
know. But I
Okay.
get the gist. I can feel like this is taking me years to come out, you know, and not be afraid to be.
I tell you why it is so fast for me. Because my twin, which is also a woman, by the way, which got me confronted with this whole gay thing. I'm not saying I'm gay, but all of a sudden I found myself in love with another woman. And as a fundamental Christian, oh my God, that blew my mind.
Would you
But
say that you felt, would you say you fell in love with the soul?
probably yes, yes,
Yeah,
because the experience was um at a higher dimension. Like we
right.
actually had a soul merge at all
Yeah.
the chakra centers. It was the one soul merging back together in 5D. So anything unlike regular relationships. But it again, that was the catalyst of breaking down all my fundamental biblical
Okay.
stuff about gays and stuff. And when my crown chakra opened, like it just poured in, and I all of a sudden saw the soul of the world, of humanity, and how everybody is just looking for love,
Yes.
right? And so
Right.
I opened my heart to the gay community. I wouldn't consider myself gay. Quite honestly, I still don't know where I
Okay.
fall on the spectrum with that. Doesn't really matter as far as labels, but my heart is open to all of that. But to your question, why my deconstruction has gone so fast is because of the twin flame connection. My twin is, she says she's not religious, but she is a fundamental Jesus lover, if I should can use that label. And she does read the Bible, but she's is very persistent about demarking herself from the general Christianity. But in my perception, it's really no different. And because I'm connected to her soul at the chakras, I have direct insight into what she feels in the subconscious, and I see what she says with her conscious mind, and those things are not adding up. So these things were mirrored back to me. I saw the incongruence, the misalignment in what she was professing and what's really going on in her subconscious. And as I'm confronted with that, I see all the lies, even in the relationship with Jesus, which serves as a lifesaver device to keep her from drowning, from
Mm,
all trauma that she is burdened with, right? So I'm I'm not faulting her for that. Everybody needs a life rope to hold on to, right? When you're just so buried. But
right.
to me, it just opened up that this Jesus thing isn't working. Here, she's the evidence of that, and that made it easy for me to just toss it all out and work through my subconscious and start listening to what I was really feeling. And for a time there, I was really going through a rebellious stage, really embracing my renegade, my Lilith,
Huh.
my rebellion against this Christian God.
It's interesting. Right
I
now, the
allowed
moon is
myself to
on Lilith.
just, oh, I just allowed myself to express everything that I felt about that. Not on my videos so much, but on my walks, my morning walks, I'd be throwing expletives and everything, right? Just to clear that stagnant energy.
Yes, yes.
So definitely fast tracked my deconstruction.
That's
I
awesome.
saw the bullshit.
Yeah. I remember when I was going through one of the hardest times of my life and Christians, I was getting angry because my son had autism and changed my whole trajectory. And I was going through the anger part of grief.
Yeah.
And some of my close friends were like, you really need to be careful because you're stepping on some territory here with God that's not acceptable. And God said to me, let me have it. Come on, give it to me.
I
And
actually have a musing in the pipeline. I recorded. Is it this morning? I haven't uploaded it yet, but it's on this very same line.
oh, really?
You have to step on God's toes if you're going to find your genuine soul. You have to have that freedom to go in and feel everything you feel without fearing the reprimand from upstairs, without the censorship, right? So,
Right.
yeah,
So emotion has a lot to do with it. It was this when you were saying you're never in trouble with God?
not that kind of God, not the
Okay.
Christian God,
Okay.
because like I said earlier, I got the consciousness that my soul is God. So I couldn't be in trouble with another being outside of my own soul.
I love it.
I have to surrender to my soul, which is now saying, you just let her rip.
I'd love to talk about because I got this thing recently that I have to ground. Okay. And I started realizing that I dissociated and I started realizing a lot of the people I knew in church, I started to see it because I saw it in myself. But
Yeah.
sometimes, like you say, we see it reflected back through others. And I noticed that a lot of people I knew in church, they were dissociating from whether their body, one of their bodies, whether it be the emotional body, the mental body, the psychological body, the physical body.
Yes.
And so what we do is we just go spiritual, right? We just go
Mhm.
religion and we go outside of ourselves to that other being, right? So there's the dissociation again. It's like double dissociation.
Yeah.
And um, I have, I'm receiving a lot of just confirmation through you about this and how we dissociate because of the trauma we're experiencing. So other people go into addiction, but to Christians, that's bad. So we're not going to do the bad stuff. So we go
Yeah.
into Jesus
Jesus
addiction.
addiction, major addiction.
Can you talk
Yes,
about
same
that a little
thing.
bit?
Same
Yeah.
thing. Yes. Did you see my post about that?
Yes, I did. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I really resonate. And I think that Christians would be like aghast at that. Like I should be addicted to Jesus. Why not?
Oh, right. But why the distinction, right? Like as I called it a clean habit, the
Oh,
attachment to
I didn't see
Jesus
that. I didn't see that. Yes, that's
is a clean, more acceptable addiction. It's socially accepted, whereas the needle and the drinking is not. But the
ah,
root cause is the same thing. It's the dissociation from self, from soul self. You're disconnected. And as a Christian, because you inherited this identity of sinner, wicked sinner, even people try to whitewash it a little bit and exchange it. Well, I love Jesus, but I always like to say, well, if you've never heard the story of Jesus, if you were never exposed to that information, exposed to the imprinting of that you're a wicked sinner going to hell, you wouldn't have never thought of calling out on Jesus. It's early childhood imprinting. Even
right.
if it's not from this lifetime, I mean, Christianity has been around for 2,000 years, and if you consider if you lived in the Dark Ages, well, that was even worse imprinting. So it's deep, deep in our psyche. This that
Imprint
we're bad and God is good, and if you
created
have
us
the
really
identity,
bad.
if you have the identity of being such a bad person, well, I wouldn't want to stay in my body either. I don't want to
That's
have
right.
anything to do with this lump of clay, right?
Right.
That's
And
where
then
that
we actually see people. even in areas of sex or the physical body being out of order or disease in the body. So we see all these manifestations through the natural, everyday workings of the body that are supposed to flow, right? They're all dysfunctional, right? That's just the physical part that we're talking
Mhm.
about, the
Mhm.
sex and the food and just the way our physical body is, or we
Yeah.
can't move. And then we can talk about even the emotional areas that are so dysfunctional. And yet we have all of this, let's call it religion, toxic religion. And I think that was part of it for me was like I was looking at these things going, something's not right. And you've talked about narcissism, and I'm uh, without saying too much, I can't share that much about my life yet right
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
but I'm very familiar with narcissism and the trauma that comes in with that, and just having to read minds, play games, and you're always on your toes mentally and psychically to try to
Yeah.
figure out,
Yeah.
so you're dissociated from yourself. You just, everything about you just goes on a shelf somewhere. And then go into religion to feel that comfort or that feel better about myself. And while you're doing this whole narcissistic, empathic dance,
Yeah.
and
Some people could even be a multiple system, right? Multiple personality disorder. And
right,
so I probably was because I was never diagnosed, but my friend, she kind of picked up on my switching. All of a sudden, I'd be in a different personality when we were conversing, and
wow,
I mean, I didn't know who the heck I was
wow,
for most of my life, but yeah, so definitely. But I can't remember so much now with my narcissistic upbringing because I do think I compartmentalized that. But just recently, learning from that Professor Sam Vaknin, he really broke it down how narcissism just hollows you out of yourself. You become a
wow,
non-person. You become a hollow shell. Um, and I found that I related that so much to Christianity. Like everything is about God and nothing about myself. Like self is bad. Again, it sets you up for complete dissociation and self-abandonment. And when when I overlaid it with Christianity, it just clicked into place. And I just had to admit that Christianity really hollowed me out. I didn't know who I was.
wow. The
So,
self-abandonment that really resonates with me.
yeah.
And so once we realize that, how do we take the path and turn around and for, get in ourself, in our true soul?
Basically follow your feelings, follow your
Now,
intuition.
I'm going to be devil's advocate. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So the Christian in me, the trained Christian says, you don't
No.
follow your feelings. You don't follow your emotions. You follow Christ because your emotions will lead you off into you don't know where. Trouble.
Yeah.
What do we say to that?
Well, let's first of all say where the emotional part, the feeling part is actually governed by our right brain. It's the divine feminine aspect of us. And as Christians, we have learned to be in the left brain, in the masculine, logical side. So we have suppressed the soul, have suppressed the feelings uh, and our emotions. And yeah, so it's an unbalanced way of looking at it.
Right.
But once I tapped into the emotional side, because everything in our being is emotionally driven. And yes, I have to say that there needs to be a balance because those emotions can take you over the cliff,
Right.
if they're dysregulated. But we can't shut our feelings out and down. That's the problem. That's the problem of dissociation.
Right.
It's the buried trauma, and it's because I think it's unconscious because we have the trauma, but we don't want to feel that. We don't want to let that rise because it's going to upset our apple cart.
Right.
So, yeah, I
Wow.
followed my feelings once well, first I had to throw out God, right? I had to throw out the judge that kept the bat over my head. Once I got rid of
Right.
that, I was free to explore my feelings and listen to my body and my
Mm.
intuition and tune in there. What's really going on in me? Where is me? Right?
Right. And
Yeah.
that's vulnerable. That's, I'm seeing how the currency of authenticity right now is one of the most valuable
Mm.
currencies in the earth. Authenticity. And I've heard you share authentically how you processed a feeling or how you processed something you discovered, whether you felt it in your body, in your heart, or whatever, and you processed it through. So it wasn't like it threw you off the cliff or you went crazy but you
No.
learned to process it, to acknowledge it, take a look at it, feel it, expose it, and come through because of the source in you in that
Yeah.
process.
Early on, when I entered my dark night of the soul, I had a very brief period where I almost fell into psychosis. It just lasted for half a day, but oh, it was scary. I was losing my mind completely. But thankfully, I work out in the country and I mow grass on the farm.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
could just kind of calm myself down, just spinning around on my lawnmower all day long to regulate myself. But I thought, oh boy, if I lose it now, I'm going to go into be institutionalized, right, for a while.
Well, I just want to say that that's really authentic and it's really vulnerable because I'll be honest with you. Don't you think we all get to points where we tip over that place? But in church, you'd never admit that, especially if you were a church leader or a church,
There's a big stigma about mental illness.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's just getting chipped away. And it's in the astrology. I'm telling you, 25 and 26, like it's the souls that are actually revealing those things like you just did revealed that are gonna move into healing so rapidly and connect back to their true self. I don't know if you call higher self or true self or
I would like to
soul.
call it the greater self. I don't like higher so much because that higher
It's
and
like a
lower,
polarity. It's a
yeah,
polarity. Okay.
greater. Let's just say it's the greater bubble of me.
Okay. So let's go back to that moment. And so you were able to recognize, okay, I'm in a psychosis right now. And I love that we're talking about the mental because this is where humanity is actually going. You're actually a forerunner.
Yeah.
And what happened?
Well, I being out in nature and just not having any stimuli and input, I just basically breathed myself through it until I regained some sense of um rationalization. And then I could kind of coach myself through it, like, you're not crazy. And at the same time, I had to validate what was going on because the the rejection wound was really, really hurting.
Hmm.
And just breathing through that, and I was trying to make sense. How could this happen? And what's wrong with me? Or is it the other person? I was volleying all these questions, trying to
Right.
sort this out. But yeah, some people actually end up hospitalized because it is such a shock to the system where the mind just shuts down. It just
Mm,
can't process, right? And I just was able to keep myself from going over the brink, thankfully. But yeah,
mm,
but we shouldn't fear it. It's part of the process. And when your belief structure breaks down too quickly, then this can
mm.
happen, right? Your mind
Oh,
can't keep
yes.
up.
Yes. Yes. Do you see an acceleration of that happening in the because there's this big wave of people coming out of fundamental Christianity, but I see not just in this realms, but like in my vision, but I see in the astrology that another big, big tsunami wave is coming. And I believe that I see mental illness being exposed through that because of the shock, you know, and awe and the sense of, oh my God, like if I don't have my religion, what am I going to do? I'm not
Yeah.
going to make it. Would you say that you think a period of time is coming like that, or do you think it's going to be more easy and
Well, I've got a little bit of Sparky. My puppy is whining. What's the matter, baby? I've got. I listened to some other channelings. There is something interesting going to happen fairly soon here, maybe before the year is out, and it has to do with a light being called Pele. That's the ancient volcano goddess of Hawaii. When she
okay?
first incarnated, she incarnated as a soul that in a form that turned into a volcano. But she is about to be conceived again, and her conception is going to spark I guess what they call the solar flash that will
Oh,
accelerate the next mass awakening, the
oh,
next
okay.
wave. So it is definitely lining up with the dates that you are seeing.
Very interesting. I mean, I've heard other myths behind those that big solar, event
Yeah.
as well. And
Honey,
I don't think yet the dog wants to get on camera or
can you?
what?
Well, I don't want
We can
to.
say hello.
Let me see if I can get her on here.
What's her name?
Sparky. There she is.
Hi,
Hey, baby.
honey.
What do you
Oh, what a
need? What do you
sweetheart.
need? What do you need,
She
baby?
knows you're talking to the people.
Yeah. What
How's she
is it?
feeling?
I just fed you. What else do you want? Kisses? Huh?
Oh, precious.
Okay, okay. Well, come
So
here then.
precious.
Come sit
Yeah,
beside me.
come up so we can see you.
Yeah. Don't short out my computer here though with the static. So yeah, so 2025, 26 definitely has something in the works.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we have five outer planets. The outer planets move much, much slower. Sometimes they'll be in one sign for like 20 years,
Mm.
sometimes longer. So five outer planets are moving to new signs
Mm.
from the end of this year into 26. All five of them are going to move. And I just see the Earth on its axis like shifting, and just at another level of another dimension of that, we could say the soul or the soil, the earth, us shifting like that. And nothing's going to be the same. And that's the consciousness awakening that I see happening in a massive way. I think we're the kind of the first fruits of this or the first wave of it.
Yeah, yeah. Forerunners, yeah.
So, the being the devil's advocate again, okay? I was told, you can't kill your ego and Jesus has to do it. And Jesus, if you don't have Jesus, you're going to go to hell because he died for your sins. How could you trust in yourself? You don't have, what Jesus has to bring you to heaven. And, I'm being rhetorical in a way,
I
but
know. I don't
for the,
know how to answer that because we're talking two different dimensions,
right.
duality and oneness. And ah,
What was that you said? Oneness and what?
duality.
Oh,
Christianity really
duality.
is in duality, right? And
Can you talk a little bit about duality for people that aren't
I
familiar
don't
with the
know if I
term?
have the official definition of that, but
But how do you feel? How do you
I
feel?
think of it like like the tree of knowledge of good and evil, that there's good and
Hmm.
evil and there's God and there's humans. We're not one. We are separate.
Correct.
We're separate species.
I can say that I vouch for seeing a continual frustration in the church. They don't call it duality, but there's this continual frustration that we're going to get there and we're going to save the world and we're going to really get in Christ. Someday we're getting there and
I
we're
know.
really going to get victorious. And it's this constant never getting the carrot. It's dangling all the time, but I'm never getting to that place.
The
And then
carrot,
then and
yeah,
then
the
the
carrot,
shame and the
sorry.
guilt and the shame and the guilt, which are the lowest of all frequencies. And
Yeah, but
so
that doesn't matter to Christians. They don't think in terms like that.
so that's a little bit about duality.
Yeah.
We could go on and on about it. Also, how it separates us one from another.
Um, and that's really, it really has to be, it cannot be taught. It really has to be an epiphany that a person gets one day that I am that I am. I am that, right?
Yes. Yes.
How do
I
you
am,
explain that?
but I am. I like to use as a meditation sometimes. It is a scripture, but I just say, be still and
And
know
so,
I am
yeah, without
God.
the that I am, yeah, or
I
God.
am God.
Yeah. See, my
It
Christians
just,
read that and they think automatically it's talking about someone else,
right, right,
not yourself.
right. So that's a great way to put it that how could you, if you're talking two different dimensions. And I love how even in the Bible we see Christ return from death and he's in another dimension. He's walking through walls. He's saying, you can't come up and run up and hug me. You can't, like, you know,
Yeah.
because he's in another dimension. And sometimes they see him and then sometimes they don't see him. Sometimes they don't recognize him, then they recognize him. And it's the same thing as the transfiguration,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And yet, why we just kind of fluffed over those scriptures. I know I did. I didn't see it.
Can't see because you don't have the eyes to see it. You just
It
have the 3D eyes, those two eyes to read the text. And the letter kills.
right, but the spirit gives life. So
Yeah.
the let's say we're not in duality and we start to open up through that veil and we begin to understand oneness. I- I'm going to ask you I know for me, judgment began to fall away. That was one of the biggest things. First thing was like
Yes.
hell. Hell no longer, there wasn't this eternal hell conscious suffering and torment. And the
Right.
other thing was judgment for me. How about for you?
Yes, definitely judgment first. With the crown chakra opening and getting that epiphany about all the LGBTQ and how everybody was just looking for love, and then I felt this love vibration over the whole earth, and that killed my judgment because I was very judgmental of the homosexual community.
Me
And
too. And I didn't think I was, but I realized I was once my
yeah,
understanding opened. That's the thing. See, we don't think we're judgmental.
oh God, I was the Pharisee. I judged
I,
adultery and divorce and remarriage and those homosexuals. And the funny thing is, every one of those things ended up in my own family. And
of
that's what makes you
course.
sit up and say, wait a minute, do I really want to be that strict about it?
All of a sudden we become you know what? Maybe I won't be so judgmental.
Yeah.
Isn't that always the way? It's the pastor that's preaching fire and brimstone, and they have a child that's a drug addict, or they have a child that's a gay.
Yep.
Always,
That's
always
the
it
way it
happens. Just
works.
it's
Comes
karmic.
comes right down to your doorsteps.
And so obviously in the oneness consciousness, the greatest is love.
Yeah. They say authenticity is, but I still would say love ultimately because you can be really authentically angry, and
That's good.
that can do some damage if you externalize it, right? But I think love probably is the highest
Frequency.
goal.
Mm.
Yeah.
Now, in Christianity, I don't know if you experienced this, but I know I did, which was to forsake my body, beat my body, don't take care of it. Just, I don't have a body. It's dead.
That's why
Like,
I have four teeth, right? I didn't take very good care of that.
Wow.
Yeah, I took denying myself very literal.
Right, right. You deny yourself, take up your cross, take care of everybody else. That's just really perfect
Yes.
for an empath.
Oh,
Perfect for somebody that's been in, under narcissistic abuse and giving narcissistic supply because you're constantly being that enabler, right?
yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think there's part of this coming back into ourselves and, connecting back from that disassociation and coming back into our bodies is that we're realizing we can't love anybody else unless we love.
Exactly. Yeah. And
We realize,
I don't, once I realized that I no longer felt, the shame for loving myself too much. I am my priority. I'm not ashamed to say that. That doesn't
mm,
mean I'm a completely narcissistic, egocentric persona now. I am self-centered, but not in that way. It's in the higher self because my soul is connected. It's a healthy self-love, a healthy um selfishness.
mm, yeah,
This love has somewheres to go. It's stored up, whereas before, where you had no self, it was like a bucket with holes. It
yes,
just you couldn't retain it. Now you can retain it, and it flows over
yes.
into the world.
It emits out, it radiates out,
Yeah,
it emanates naturally. And so all that striving goes away. Whereas
and you need.
before,
And sorry to interrupt you. I'm
no,
bad.
that's okay. Go ahead.
But you said mentioned ego before, killing the ego. We need the ego. The ego is the graphic interface for this physical life, but it needs to be an integrated ego. We need
Integrated.
to love that as much, as everything else. It's like that stepchild.
Right.
But
I
we did.
loved I heard you say a message. I don't know if it was today's or not, but you said this was an epiphany for me, but it really hit me. And it was like, we have to actually even love our ego because when we do, we can love the egos of others.
Yes, yes.
And that was like,
My
wow.
cheat code.
Not that our ego should be um in charge, but
No,
to acknowledge it and love it and know that it is at least for me, it is the catalyst for me to my higher self
yeah.
or
Well,
my greater self or my truer self
yeah.
because it's that authentic path through for me. I don't know if
Well, it,
that's how
it
it is for
is
you.
you. It is you in this dimension, right? It is me.
Yes.
I compared it to children growing up. If you have a large family and there's 6 or 8 kids, and mom is overwhelmed and dad is working, and the kids raise themselves, these children are emotionally deprived on a one-to-one level, and so our ego is like that child that throws a tantrum in the supermarket because it just wants to be seen and loved. And when you haven't had that attention, you're going to be one of them. Your ego is just going to be like one of those kids that just wants attention. It acts out.
Right, right. And if you grow up in a Christian family, a large Christian family with a lot of children, you learn to just go into religion and ignore that cry,
Yeah.
right? So, getting back a little bit to narcissism and not loving the self, right? Because that's what we do when we're under a narcissistic power, let's say, right? Um, Coming back into loving the self. And this is a question I like to ask almost every person that I talk to on these videos, but because so many people are coming to terms with narcissism, so many people, and realizing the trauma that was endured through that, whether it was in the home, in the church, right? Somewhere in community where we were
Yeah.
longing for love, so we just come under this narcissistic power. Um, how do we create a boundary where we are loving, we are being that love, and yet not allowing ourselves to continue to be eaten by the vampire of narcissism.
Well, obviously uh, you have to have clear boundaries, and I'm not saying that you have to stay with a narcissist, just to show your love. You can love from a distance is very necessary. In fact, living with my dad, while my dad was alive, there was no chance in hell for me to heal because you that wound is constantly being beaten again
Right,
and again and again. So it
right.
was only after he passed away. He passed away in 1996. But man, yeah, wasn't possible to heal. It's not possible to heal while you're in the sphere of the narcissist and enduring constant abuse.
Abuse.
So it's perfectly fine and recommended that if you can get out of a narcissistic relationship.
And as I've studied a lot of this and I've done marathons to nauseum of narcissism and, how to deal with it. There's many women, even in the church, that are told just, you're supposed to submit under your husband, you're supposed to love him, and just we accept abuse and then we actually teach our children that abuse is okay too.
Yeah,
And then the cycle repeats, right?
it's really toxic. Oh,
And so in this opening of consciousness, we are realizing our toxicities and we're detoxing and we're rebalancing and we're coming back to love and healing. Do you believe that this path into the soul is always healing in some way?
is always healing, you mean?
Yeah, are we always on a healing path, or is it just a path of ascension, or is it
Uh,
just
it is your path of ascension, but I like to keep it more down to earth and relatable on a human level. That's why I call it reconnecting to your soul rather than ascension. You might think, well, where am I going? Up into
right?
the sky or something. No, it's just
Yeah,
to
that's good.
integrate your mental mind, your psychological mind, the emotional mind, to bring that all into coherence as one in your body, or bringing your five bodies into oneness, right? In this physical vessel. We're
Mm,
not going, when we're ascending, we're not going somewhere up into the
no,
sky. This is taking place inside of us.
right, right.
It's
And
integrate.
what I saw with that disassociation was we were it was too much crown chakra. It was actually always spiritual, spiritual, spiritual,
Yeah,
never grounded, never
I went
grounded.
through that for a while, for a period. I was very much up in the clouds with that. And I realized after a while, like once I really got good recognition of my soul, I felt intuitively, now I gotta bring this back into earth space, in
Mm,
this body, because it's all about this body. And I can't exactly tell you how I did that. If I knew, I'd probably have a course out already that I could sell to people.
well, everyone's path is different, right?
I know. Um, but I just follow my intuitive feeling. I really trust my feelings now. And these are feelings from the greater soul, not my lower self, like the root chakra and, where all that survival energy is. It's not that. It's from a greater intuitive knowing now. And yeah, just keep connecting to your feelings. um don't hold them, but just give yourself permission to just allow yourself to feel everything. Just let it pass through you, and that just keeps the energy flowing, I guess.
Yes. I think every chakra is holy and can be transmuted.
Yeah,
And especially when we can transmute the root chakra, because number one, it grounds us, but even using, if you're, in a sexual relationship, to when that energy flows really purely and it's very powerful. for the body, for the
I
mind.
don't have experience with that. I don't
Well,
have a
I've
partner.
experienced that, and
Yeah,
because my husband is in the we're in the same mind, in the same place.
that's
Um,
beautiful.
it is beautiful, and I'm so grateful for that. And I am Scorpio sun, so they're very associated with that chakra. Um, but again, I also have kidney disease, and I have, high blood pressure and things that are associated with that chakra that are not, healthy. So I'm in that path of restoration with that as well. So I
Are you
think that
are you working with the emotion code?
what's the emotion code?
Oh, I just found it yesterday. It's Dr. Bradley Nelson, I think, is who brought that out. But all your organs are connected to your to emotional blocks, and he's made this chart. It's called the emotion code, where you can muscle test and check
Oh,
yourself.
okay.
Which
Yeah,
emotions are the cause for whatever issues you have, and it's
right.
interesting.
The
Yeah, it's
kidneys are very associated with fear.
yeah,
Kidneys are very associated with fear. Lungs, grief, liver,
yeah.
anger, gallbladder, resentment. Um,
I have
but
the occasional heart pain up on my upper heart here, and I'm not quite sure what it is, but I'm sure it's related to emotional stuff.
wow, I wonder if you have Leo in your chart because that's the heart, It's
I'm
just
Virgo.
interesting.
I'm double Virgo. Virgo,
That's,
right? Virgo Sun and Virgo Rising. And
okay.
um, I don't know a whole lot about astrology. I just had my chart read by
Did
Lisa
you?
Brown.
Your
And
moon could be in Leo, but
could be. I have to go back and look at it, but
because that's where emotion is, wherever your moon is, where your emotions lie and how they represent and
I think there is a Leo in there. Yeah, I
how they
remember.
present. And
Yes.
but yeah, so I think we're just not just coming into the realization that we are source, we
That's
are love,
really the one essential truth that we need to move forward.
and also that our bodies are part of that, even though we're not defined by our body, but our body moves that energy to signal us and show us the way.
Yeah. I've recently changed my escapist stance of leaving the body to embracing more a I actually believe that if I can use Christian terminology, God desires to dwell in a human vessel, in this type of body. God doesn't just want to be spirit. It it wants to
Yeah.
inhabit a body. That's what we see when we read in Revelations about the New Jerusalem coming down out of heaven. God wants to come down and dwell among men.
Yes.
So
And
the
it's
future is here.
yes. Yes, that's it. That's where we are.
And when
God.
things are not going so well in my body, I want to get out of here.
Well, some people do it in their dream states, and some
Yeah.
people astral project, and but we did it in religion, right? And people do it in addiction, but as a churchgoer, I could see my judgment towards addicted people and people that astral projected and all these people that left their bodies, right? But didn't see how I did it.
Hmm.
And so as we come into more and more truth, we realize we're really all the same. There is no judgment,
Yeah.
and that's liberation.
Yeah.
It's interesting that right now, this weekend, we're having the lunar eclipse in Libra, and that is the sign of the balancing scales, because we're talking about ground and crown chakras. It's balancing our chakras, right?
Hmm.
It's balancing the energy.
Yeah.
It's also the house of significant relationships and how we relate one to another, and getting back to that balance. And not being so, often in these realms where we're disassociated, but coming back into balance. Really important.
Yeah, I saw this too, in a friend. We ended up parting. ways over that, but I saw the imbalance of being too much in 5D, in those upper dimensions where, like in Christianity, we would say, you're so heavenly minded, you're no earthly good. It
Right. I've heard
ends up
that.
being that you're not you become unrelatable to common people, and
Mm-hmm.
I just it just didn't feel right for me. So that's
Mm.
what brought my attention back to it. Like, I really don't want to go out that far. I really want to stay grounded here because my
Do
heart
you,
is to relate to people.
I think you do, because I can listen to you speak and really it hits home. And I love your snippets because they're so to the point and they hit, you know, right onto the mark and they're short and they're direct,
Yeah.
and they really deposit something of truth. Like when you hear truth, your whole being comes alive. Light just shoots through your cells, your DNA, everything kind of stands up to attention because we know we're listening to
Mm,
truth.
mm.
And I really appreciate that. So it's very integrative, it's very relatable, I
Yeah, and
think, on
see,
any
I'm
level.
not even trying to be. It's just, I guess, a reflection of my inner balance, and it just happens kind of all on its own. So, yeah,
When you said you had a Kundalini awakening, because I experienced that, where literally my body, some stuff happened to me. And I don't know, I wouldn't know how to relate that to a church experience where I was off in the spirit or something, but I
yeah,
literally felt the energy move through my chakras.
yeah. Mine moved right through. Like, I didn't have any blockages. It went right straight up to crown chakra, and then it was open. uh a lot of people say they get a lot of physical symptoms. I never had a lot. I could feel it move like through my sacral, and then all of a sudden it was up.
Wow,
But yeah,
that's incredible.
and a friend said, well, it must mean that you didn't have many blockages. I really don't know all that much about it, but I do know that something opened up here, definitely.
Wow. Do you ever integrate anything with bodily, like tapping or,
um
any type
don't
of
know much
hands-on
about it yet, but
energy healing?
I've got a friend that's probably going to coach me a little bit into that. I don't
Oh,
know
that's
very much
awesome.
about it yet,
That's
but
awesome.
definitely going to be interested in learning how to use these appropriately.
Oh, that's beautiful. Oh, it's powerful. I can't wait to see where that's going to go.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, I've really appreciated just hearing some of your path and the freedom. When I am in your presence, whether just listening to you, I just feel it's okay. It's okay to let go and know source is you. You
Yeah.
can live through your soul, and this is beautiful. This is a beautiful path, and you are a beautiful soul.
Your
And you
soul is God.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful. I love that. Because my channel on YouTube is called Beautiful Souls. And I think that's going to open to me more and more. But to say your soul is God, wow.
Yeah, I've no doubt about it whatsoever. Sometimes my religious programming still comes in from this separate God that's going to get mad at me, and then I just take whatever. I
Same,
just flick it off.
same,
No,
same. I go through the same thing.
yeah.
I think it's even more people for me. What would people think? And
Yes,
people will
I think
condemn me.
maybe we pick up on the astral, we pick up on their consciousness, and we hear the chatter right in the background. 'Cause I know what people think.
Right. But yet we continue because we can't go back. Once you see,
No.
there's no explaining that. Like once you see, you can't unsee it. You're literally transformed. We're transformed. It's not going. There's no going back. So
Yeah.
I think there was some people that were hoping. that I could go back, back to the religion or back to the Jesus the way,
Mm,
and there is no going back.
no, no. Sometimes I have entertained that thought, just to try and make peace with people, but it's impossible. You'd be living a lie.
Right, right. We wouldn't be true to ourselves and true to our soul,
Mm,
which is true to God.
yeah.
Sometimes it's easier to be in a herd mentality where everybody thinks the same and
Oh,
we feel
yeah.
safe and that's secure and everyone agrees with us and we're all walking the same templated path,
Hmm.
right? That's, would you say that's egoic?
Absolutely. It's unconsciousness. It's
Which we
herd
could also,
mentality is unconscious. You're not conscious. You're not on board. You're not aware of what's really going on in your soul. That you don't really want to be there.
deep down.
Yeah.
Mm. And I would hear a lot of scriptures and a lot of preaching about that the church has to wake up. The church has to wake up. The church has to awaken. Awaken. We even know the scriptures. Awaken, O sleeper, right?
Mhm.
But you just said you're unconscious. It's the same thing as being not awakened,
Yeah.
correct?
Hmm.
I think when we would talk about the church needing to wake up, I don't know what we were saying we needed to wake up from. I don't think we even knew.
It
You know
was
what I
an
mean?
it was an unconscious feeling, but no, we didn't know what, where. But it was that suppressed feeling that something about this church business doesn't feel right. And that's why we said, well, we need to wake up. Something needs to wake up. But what? Your soul. Your soul.
So true. That's beautiful. Well, thank you for spending the time with us today, and I'd love to have you come back and open some other things up and talk about them if you'd like to.
I apologize for jumping all over. I get, like I mentioned to you before, I get a little spazzy and
Oh no,
anxious, and so I,
that
I jump around a bit. You're so composed with your questions and everything, and I feel like I'm going all over the place.
oh, that's okay. It's wherever it goes, and I love to talk to people and just pull out, whatever's there. So I would love to talk again and just build on, what we've been talking about as it's being channeled, as it's coming through, and as we're all moving with
Yeah.
this flow. So
Thank you so much for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to practice in this format more.
absolutely, anytime.
Get me a little more comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll catch you in the next one. I'm just gonna turn off the recording.